how he would control his breathing patterns to maximize that round.
One thing to think about is where your breath is going and how efficient is your breathing. One thing that we see a lot is a lot of like chest breathing. So it's really high. And so if I'm up here, those breaths are very effective.
I'll never forget the quote. I think it was, I don't know if it was DC or something, saying in that Amanda Nunes fight when she lost, she said that, would that deem to be true? Is it the respiratory, or do they have to be working all in sync, or is one more important than the other?
They definitely all work in sync, and I think depending on your genetic potential.
John Jones is the youngest champion in UFC history.
Jones Brothers, it's 3 guys that are very competitive, all 3 of us, you know.
Or how you fight or what training you've been exposed to. Some guys will train a certain way.
You ever see the video of him wrestling a bear?
He's got that world champion technique.
So it's either the muscles are the problem, the heart is the problem, or the lungs are the problem. And we'll look to enhance that thing specifically. There's 3 major limiting factors usually to like cardio or cardiorespiratory endurance. And so we're looking at like your heart just can't push enough blood to where it needs to go.
Is that genetic? I'm excited for today's podcast because we got like the creme of the crop. And the reason why I say that is that, look, I was in the PI, right? Like I go with Evan to do his blogs, and it was the first time I was in the PI. I've seen it on Instagram and all that stuff, but this thing is no joke. This is like the high tech of the most high tech, like craziest thing I've ever seen. Nothing I've ever seen before. They got all the gear. They have the shockwave thing for fighters that get injured, like people like you, like high level strength and conditioning coaches. I'm just blown away, right? And strength and conditioning is such a big part, obviously, in like combat sports. But let's start off with what you were talking about, because that was very fascinating. What you just told me pre-recording about when you said like the genetics, where someone has a like good genetics, right? But then if you compare it to another person that doesn't have as good of genetics, and then they do strength and conditioning, and then they surpass them. Can you go into detail a little bit about that?
Yeah. So off air, we were just talking about, well, first I'll preface it. You know, I've heard the argument some fighters don't want to train S&C. They'd rather just do more fighting or do more skills training, and that will make them the better fighter. I was just explaining how, you know, as a human, you have a genetic potential. Your athletic potential could be the muscle fiber composition you have, could be your tactical skills, could be a mix of, you know, physical and technical abilities. But say you don't do any S&C and you have a certain level of genetic potential, somebody who has maybe less genetic potential overall might not be as good as that fighter. But when you add in the S&C, you add in strength and conditioning, you add in training, you can surpass your genetic potential by adding more physical qualities that you didn't have before. So you're either stronger, more explosive, have better endurance, have better cardio, for lack of better words. And so you can essentially surpass your original genetic potential, and maybe even surpass the fighter who only is relying on their genetic potential and not actually doing anything extra to bolster their genetic potential.
Is that true? Is that statement true, that a lot of fighters will, from what you've seen, a lot of fighters will just go by their genetic like predisposition to, you know, carry them over? Like, it's not that they're you know, arrogant about it. It's just maybe they might think that maybe it's a lack of knowledge of muscles holding them back, right? Like there's that thought of like, oh yeah, the bigger your muscles are, and I don't know if this is true, the bigger that your muscles are, it takes up oxygen and all of a sudden you gas out.
Sure.
Is that true in any way? Is that what the psychology of like what the fighters are thinking? What do you see when that happens?
I think in that sense, fighting is ancient. It's a very old sport. It's one of the oldest sports. You go back to boxing, and I think a lot of the training styles in fighting is very traditional. And when you look at S&C or even, you know, kinesiology as a science, it's only been around for the last just over 100 years as a training science.
Sorry to cut you off. Before we go into any more, can you give us a brief explanation of kinesiology.
Yes,
For people that
sure. Kinesiology,
Yeah.
just the art and science of human movement. So people that study muscle physiology, central nervous system, musculoskeletal, and how the system works together to produce force and strength and speed and all the other physical qualities that we use to fight. That's essentially kinesiology. It's biomechanics, strength conditioning, physical therapy, even like PE teaching. It all kind of falls into kinesiology. So like human movement essentially is kinesiology. And so with fighting being such an ancient old sport, you get a lot of coaches, a lot of like old school coaches, from what I see, are the bigger determining factor on how their fighters train. And so you might get those coaches saying, hey, you just need to fight more. You need to spar more. That'll help your cardio and conditioning. You need to do more drilling. That'll help, these skills. You need to do more wrestling to get stronger. And some of that's definitely true. And, you have guys that have won world championship titles with no S&C. I just beg the question is, how much longer could they have held their title? How many more title defenses could they have had they added S&C? And I know I'm on a tangent, but kind of my philosophy or the way I see it is when you're looking to train S&C, it's almost like you're filling up the buckets. And so you might have a really good genetic bucket, tactical bucket. You might even have a great cardio bucket, but there's always gives and takes. And so you might not have the most explosive power or the most strength. And so I'm usually looking to see where your weaknesses are, where your limitations are, and work on those limitations so that you're a better, well-rounded fighter. So if I can fill in the gaps there, I think that's definitely beneficial to someone who's considering S&C versus not.
How are you determining that? Do you take them, how are you structuring that? Do you take them through a various of like step one exercises? It's kind of like, let's see how your legs move. Let's see, can you, just in general, can you take us let us visualize what that would look like?
Yeah.
Say for like legs or something. I don't know.
Sure.
If they're
Yeah.
really gonna
Well, every kind of person has their training age or what amount of like physical exercise they've been exposed to. So that goes into consideration. Actually, side note before I get into that, a lot of fighters aren't typically gym rats. So sometimes we're just teaching exercise as a basic skill before we can really use the exercise as a training tool to really enhance their speed and power. But
what's going on, guys? If you're enjoying this podcast, please don't forget to like the videos and subscribe to the channel. Only if you're getting value out of it on YouTube and also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to leave a rating and follow. And also, I also write a blog newsletter from what I learned from my incredible guests that I have on. So sign up for the email list and get updates on the podcast. Thank you for your love and support. Now back to the show.
One of the things I really, really like about the PI is the like interdisciplinary system that we have, because the testing battery that we do at the PI is probably one of the most extensive I've seen anywhere in a professional level.
The testing battery?
Testing battery. So we use our nutrition department, our sports medicine department, our strength and conditioning department, our sports science department, and we call them our tier 1 tests. And so every department takes the athlete through their most important testing battery. And so for sports medicine, we're looking at joint stability. We're looking at ranges of motion and seeing where, they might be too tight and might be susceptible to different choke submissions, things like that. That's how it kind of relates. And then S&C, we're looking at their strength and power. How explosive are you? How strong are you? And then sports nutrition is looking at, hey, how much lean muscle tissue do you have? How much fat mass do you have? Do you have enough? Do you have too much? And then our sports science department breaks down your energy system development, or your ESD, which is your conditioning. So we have like 3 different levels of conditioning: your immediate burst, your short-term power, and then your long-term power. And basically we take one athlete through all the departments. We find all this information and knowledge on the athlete, and we can create a complete athlete profile that shows us all your strengths and weaknesses, from health, brain health, joint mobility, and strength and power. Even like your cardio, you might be really good and can take someone to deep waters, but if you were to get into an exchange and wrestling exchange right to strikes, how fast do you recover? And so we can look at all those different things and really create essentially a profile for you and know exactly what to target in your training.
Yeah, particularly for strength and conditioning. If before someone gets into like a fight, what's the main thing that you're looking at? Is it explosiveness? What is there a main criteria that you're like, okay, we gotta, or is it individualized for each fighter? I'm pretty sure it is, but then is there like one main thing that you're looking at? It's
Definitely.
like, you know, plyometrics, you know, whatever.
It's definitely, every athlete has their own thing that they need to work on, and that is very individual. But I think for the sport, we're looking at repeat power. And so the ability to express force explosively and consistently. And so you don't want to gas out towards the end of the fight. Like, we want your first round to be your last round. So we want to be able to stay explosive, stay bouncy, stay sharp the entire fight. So your ability to sustain and repeat your explosive efforts is probably one of the biggest determining factors.
Now that, you know, I'll never forget the quote. I think it was, I don't know if it was DC or something, saying in that Amanda Nunes fight when she lost her title for the first time to Cruz, he said that, I don't know if he said it, but then he said that exhaustion makes a coward out of all of us.
Ooh.
And that just, when you said that, I was like, I need more detail. Like, let's get to specifics because look, Marab goes to my gym, right? Syndicate, or I go to his gym. You know what I mean? It's his house.
He goes to your gym.
He goes to my house. But anyway, he goes to Syndicate MMA, and I mean, he's the prime example.
Yeah.
Right? Sure, a lot of people account for like the genetics, right? He's just a full-blown machine. They call him the machine, and for good reason. But then, can you get more in detail of how you make fighters last? I mean, championship rounds, right?
Yeah.
Fourth and fifth round, they still have that first round endurance in their gas tank. How do you go about doing that? What's the most important aspect?
There's three major limiting factors usually to like cardio or cardiorespiratory endurance. And so we're looking at like skeletal muscle oxygenation. Do your muscles give out because the blood can't be delivered fast enough or cleared fast enough? Sometimes it's respiratory. So you're not able to maximize the oxygen that you're taking in and deliver it to the working muscles. And sometimes it's cardiac, like your heart just can't push enough blood to where it needs to go.
Is that genetic?
It starts genetic. You can train each of those things. And so certain things that we've seen is like lung volume, lung capacity, and like ventilatory thresholds, and where you're able to say, for instance, we have a fighter who went through our testing battery, and as the testing got harder, she took more breaths, and those more breaths she were taking were shorter and shorter and shorter. So she was working harder to deliver less oxygen to her body. So they went the wrong direction in both ways. So you want to be able to take consistent breaths that are actually maximizing the oxygen, because your body basically works on oxygen and, you know, macronutrient stuff too. But when you're trying to last, you're trying to deliver oxygen to your muscles, to your heart, through your lungs, into the rest of the body. So it's usually one of those three things that gives out. And if the muscles are giving out, then we can work on skeletal muscle oxygenation and create better muscle endurance for you. If it's a heart problem, then we can work on conditioning and energy system development that targets more of the heart and the pump ability, for lack of better words, of your heart. Or we can work on the respiration, the respiratory rate, and the recovery of your training, of your breathing, like between round recovery.
If I were to like sum up what you just said, all I hear is like respiratory, right? That's what sticks out to the common man that doesn't really know about like the systems.
Yeah.
Would that deem to be true? Is it the respiratory, or do they have to be working all in sync, or is one more important than the other?
They definitely all work in sync. And I think depending on your genetic potential or how you fight or what training you've been exposed to, some guys will train a certain way. So one of those systems will be very developed and one of those systems might not be very developed. So it's either the muscles are the problem, the heart is the problem, or the lungs are the problem. And so with the testing that we go through, we can kind of look to see which one of those is the biggest problem, and we'll look to enhance that thing specifically.
Oh, fascinating. Dang. Yeah, so before, like say you have a new fighter that goes in there, right? What kind of analytics are you doing? You know, like what kind of maybe workouts in the beginning are you starting them off with to figure all that out, to structure the next time they come in and, you know, all that?
Say a fighter's brand new, we typically would start with what we call like a return to training, or like an RTT phase, or like a general physical preparation phase, where the exercises are more, I would say, introductory, where you're kind of learning how to lift. You're learning the proper mechanics. You're learning the proper movement. And
range of motion type.
100% range of motion's included in there. And so you're kind of getting a familiarity with structured exercise. Some guys never train in their life. They don't know how to do a squat or a lunge or a press or a row or anything like that.
Even fighters.
Especially fighters.
That's kind of like wild to me, because these guys are, what you think of UFC, right? It's kind of like the NBA compared to the D League. You know what I mean? It's like, wait a minute, these guys are on top of the top, at least for your average casual fan, right? It's like, dude, these guys are fighting at T-Mobile stadiums at the cream of the crop promotion.
Yeah.
You'd figure that they know a lot about their bodies and strength and conditioning.
Yes, but not so much in the traditional gym setting where it's structured and it's biomechanics and it's, proper positionings and stuff. They might go in there and rip some weights, but from what I've seen, and I used to work with NFL as well, like NFL they're gym rats, because as you go through school, you go through high school, college, and to get to the professional level, you have to be in the weight room. Like, it's indoctrinated into the sport. With fighters, it's not so much so, especially when you have those old school type coaches where it's just more fighting gets you better at fighting. You can't just say more football gets you better at football. It's you gotta be in the weight room. You gotta be big and strong so you can take contact. And so from what I've seen, especially with fighters, is they're not typically gym rats. They're not typically in there doing squats and deadlifts and rows and a lot of these like traditional, more foundational lifts. They might do more plyometrics or more like ballistic type exercises that are a bit bouncier and faster. But as far as like the main structured lifts that are going to help increase your bone density, increase your like tissue strength, and create a more robust athlete, like your squats, your bench, your deadlift, that's typically what we're looking at starting these guys with. Variations, obviously. I'm not going to throw, a few 100 pounds on your back and make you do a squat right away, but the pattern of a squat, maybe with like a dumbbell or a kettlebell or something, and now you're learning the movement and the mechanic of a squat, and we progress you from a simple version of a squat to a more advanced version of a squat.
What would be like a simple version of a squat? Because I'm one of those guys that just squat. And yes, like one of those, used to play football in like high school. And you don't learn many variations of squats. Like
back squat.
Back squat, keep your posture up, look up, like, that kind of stuff. Flat foot, I don't know, And when I was training with you this Saturday, I think I learned more things in that 30 minutes or an hour than I did in the 4 years of like actually weightlifting.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. That's a great question. Yeah. So for us, like in the kinesiology world, it's like pattern based, right? So like squat is a movement pattern you can learn. I'll give them different movement patterns, and then I'll kind of show you different exercises per each. But you're looking at like a squat, a hinge, or like a deadlift type pattern. You have your horizontal push, your horizontal pull, your vertical push, your vertical pull, and then like some sort of lunge or rotation. And there's some variations in there, but essentially those are the major movement like patterns that you go through. And when I was going through school, it was train movements, not muscles. So, hey, we're going to train the squat type pattern, the lunge type pattern, the row type pattern, and then get more specific as you go. So for your question, like what's another kind of squat? I mean, you can do a goblet squat, which is where you hold the dumbbell up here. You can do squats where you're holding dumbbells down by your sides. If you have bad mobility in your ankles, you can put your wedges down or put your heels on a plate so you have better range of motion. So you can do like a full depth squat.
Right.
So you can do different implements. You can do an assisted where you're holding onto cables and do like a body weight squat. You can squat to a box. You can do a single leg squat. Then you can get into kind of different like lunge variations, which are pretty knee dominant and kind of squatty, but the lunge was its own movement.
Yeah.
So we'll leave the lunge
I mean,
there,
these things are so attention to detail now, right? Like we're
100%.
getting into like this. I mean, that's why it's the best of the best. It's like, now since we're at high level, stakes over here, it deserves high level attention to detail when it comes to strength and conditioning.
That's just the movement. And so once you've got the squat pattern down as a movement, now you can start looking at the different like contractile properties of the muscle. And so do I want you to do that thing slow? Do I want you to do it fast? Do I want you to pause and then go fast? Are we doing it really rapid? Have we added bands or chains or other implements to change the dynamic movement of the muscle and now stress a different portion of contraction? So you can play, once you've got the movement pattern down, you can start playing with how that muscle interacts with the movement and start training more specific strength qualities. If you want, I can detail our different strength qualities that we look at, but like what is strong? What does it mean to be strong? I mean, you got a guy with 1,000 pounds on his back is strong, but you also got a gymnast who can hold his body weight on rings, which is strong. Like they do two different things.
It's a different kind of.
But they're both strong. So
exactly.
like, what is strength? What is strong? And how do you take that knowledge and apply it to a fighter? What does a fighter need? What is strong for a fighter?
And is that where we're getting more individualized with each person? Is that like, or are you focusing on all of what you just said on each fighter, but then taking one of those things and be like, okay, he's strong at that, so let's focus on that? How are you analyzing that? Especially when they're training for a fight in particular.
Yeah.
You know, like when you're customizing something for a fighter.
Cool. Yeah, I can take you through all that. There's two like major, I would say 3 major phases when we have a fighter. We're in off camp, we're in camp, or we're like returning to training.
Ooh, okay.
And so the return to training is after they've fought, they've been cleared medically, and they're getting back into the weight room. That's where a lot of the basic, more remedial, basic squats, basic rows, do a little bit of generalized movement. And then...
Oh, I'm sorry. Before that, when a fighter gets out of a fight, right?
Yeah.
What is it? It depends on the circumstance and how severe, whatever damage they took or whatever. What is it usually 3 months before they get back into?
We had a guy fought over the weekend and he trained today.
And they tried to, I would have figured those guys I would have figured the majority of them would do that.
It depends.
Some people like to decompress and then go back.
100%. Some guys want to get back as soon as possible, usually, especially after a loss. But it all depends on the medical clearance. And so they got to go through the sports med team to see, hey, you broke your leg, you didn't realize, or you tore this thing, or your jaw's busted. So sometimes there's a large medical delay where they have to go have a surgery or something like that. Some guys will get back into it. They want to train the next day. And it's like, sir, you have a concussion. You didn't know where you were on Saturday night. And so there's certain protocols they got to pass before they can come back to training. If they didn't take a lot of damage and they see sports med and like, yeah, they're good to go. Go ahead, run it. And so at that point, we'll do some of that more general type training with that person. But as you were asking, kind of how do we determine what type of training and when to do that training sort of determines or depends on if we're in camp or off camp. And so off camp is kind of the time where you want to work on the like deficiencies or what you're not good at. And so usually in off camp, we're working on strength, like a just basic general strength, move more weight with good form. And that's usually our big focus in off camp. So we're learning more of those, squats and deadlifts with specifically at the PI, we use a safety bar squat. It's got the pad on it with the handles in front. It's
that
really
I do
easy.
know.
It's easy to hang on to. I mean, we like it because it doesn't require as much flexibility in the shoulders. You can pad it. It's really low entry, low hanging fruit for doing a big, heavy movement.
Do a lot of people have trouble kind of extend? Oh, is that what
yeah.
Okay,
especially fighters, from what I've seen, is fighters
tight.
Stretch your shoulders and your chest because a lot of guys are very grapple heavy. They're kind of forwardly hunched. And so the muscles in your chest don't really get extended or stretched.
Sure.
And so when you're in this position all the time, you're hunched over, you're
It's
grappling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the muscles, respond to what they're continually exposed to. And if they're continuously exposed to a short position, they're going to stay short. And so when you try and reach overhead, you're like, oh, that's really tight. Or you want to open up and grab a bar on your back. You can't, it just can't rotate your arm that direction because probably susceptible to more, Americanas and Kimuras, but the safety bar, it's a low entry, it's easy to hang on to, and you can get a big bang for your buck. So for the lower body exercises, we use the safety bar box squat. We'll put a box down so you can kind of touch the box, and it helps us with your range of motion, and it's safe. You don't just fall to your heels and drop a big heavy weight on you. You kind of have a catch there. So the safety bar box squat we use. We also use the trap bar, the hex bar, that like open deadlift bar you can stand in the middle of. Helps you adjust your positions and your angles so that you can get a good squat. And then we also use a standard bench press and reverse grip chin up. And so those are our 4 major movement categories. And then from those 4, we have the 2 lowers and the 2 upper body movements. And so we've got a system, strong enough is kind of what we call it. Are you strong enough? And the beauty of the PI is that we have data from the last 7 years of all the athletes we've tested from all the different weight classes. And so we can determine where you rank in your weight class in all our different tests. And so we can say, hey, compared to your weight class, you're not strong enough. So you're going to get thrown around by this other guy because your strength isn't up to speed. You might have, again, there's technical things that go into that. But
I was going to say before that, would that be more of a, hey, you're in the wrong weight class kind of issue? Or
sometimes that's a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's more of a nutrition conversation.
Gotcha.
Our nutrition team would say, hey, your cuts are continuously getting harder and harder and harder. We might recommend you go up a weight class, or hey, you're making weight really, really easy. You have room to go down a weight class. You could cut relatively easy. So that's that. But the strong enough system is, are you at least at the middle of your weight class when it comes to strength? Are you about in the middle of the pack? And once we've determined and once we've gotten you strong enough to about the middle, then we can start, not to say that we won't do plyometrics or other fun, dynamic, explosive exercises, but we're primarily focused on the strength aspect, building a more robust athlete. And then we sort of prioritize more of the explosive qualities, because strength is the mother of all qualities. If you're strong, you can be more explosive. You have more, the pool is bigger to pull from, let's just say.
Yeah. So if I was to like Venn diagram this, like, put it on like as a framework on a visual, strength, and then you got spider webs going around it. Is that like strength is the foundation?
Strength is
kind of like your
foundation.
base, and then everything else is kind of like spider webbing.
So the like movement proficiency or just knowing how to do the lift is kind of that first step. And then once you've progressed through the different versions of a squat and you've built yourself up to a nice backloaded, you've got good trunk strength, you can support weight on your back. Some guys, we got to build up the core before we can throw 300, 400 pounds on their back. Once you can do that, then we'll do those heavy strength lifts. We call them our slow dynamic strength. We also have exercises that are fast dynamic strength, which is like jumping with weights or exploding with weights.
And these are for, like, say if we were to put that in fight terms, if someone was in the ring, that would be like your punching power. Would that be equivalent to why you do that? The explosive.
So the punching power would come more from like that ballistic, like throwing, like a medicine ball throw. Or like the one where someone's got a medicine ball and they're throwing it at the wall.
Sure.
That's a more like speed and power. Power is an awesome training variable to attack because you have the strength side of power and you have the speed side of power. And I know I'm getting really nerdy, but power equals force times velocity. And so if I increase the force, my power increases. And if I increase the velocity, my power also increases.
Can you distinguish between, because sometimes I have a hard time understanding what the difference is between the velocity and the force.
Yeah.
So how would you distinguish those
The velocity is the speed component, how fast something is moving.
Okay, yep.
And the heavier the weight is, the slower it moves. And so if we want to increase our explosiveness, we can kind of target that two ways. We can increase our explosiveness by lifting heavier things with the intention of making them move fast. They won't. But as long as you're trying to, your brain will snap in and you'll send that signal faster.
Fascinating, yep.
So the neurological central nervous system portion of strength training is probably more has to do with your brain and the central nervous system's ability to coordinate, send the signal to the muscles than it does the actual muscles. I mean, you can get strong with bigger muscles, but you get truly strong and more explosive with your brain's ability to be efficient, turning on the right muscles at the right time, and then with a speed component. So a lot of the speed and power stuff, as we say, it's neurological adaptation.
Yeah, man, that just clicked the light bulb because, all right, so for example, our mutual buddy, Evan Elder, shout out. What I noticed ever since he started training us, right? Like we trained with him on Saturday. This guy, like he has it in his subconscious already that neurologically, like you were talking about, he stands a certain way to where it's like just the way he stands, not even fights. Obviously, the way he fights, he'll have this form, but just the way he stands, it's just upright, and then his butt's kind of sticking out. You know what I mean? Not that I'm checking out, like, you know what I mean? But
tuck those hips, Evan, a little scoop.
Yeah, exactly. But then when you said neurology, it's like embedded into his brain. So I kind of get what you're saying about like, it's a big part of it's a neural, because far too often we think about strength and conditioning as just straight up muscles, but then what you just said.
Yeah, it's more the like if it's a car, or I like to think of like a car analogy, it's the computer that's in the car. Your engine can be big, which in the engine can be your muscles, but the computer is what ultimately communicates to the engine. And so if you have a bigger computer has a higher ability to send a more coordinated or send a faster signal to the muscles can in turn react faster, turn on faster, move faster. So the muscles are responsible for doing the actual mechanical work, but the computer is responsible for doing it efficiently. And so when you kind of are targeting speed and power and this speed side of explosiveness, you don't have to have huge muscles. Being strong will help you be powerful, but you aren't powerful just because you're strong. So there's a speed and an intent and an effort behind the ability to move the weight. Because for fun, if I'm deadlifting 1,000 pounds and I'm just grinding through a deadlift for 5 seconds, it takes me to lift the deadlift. A vertical jump, a sprint start, a throw, these all happen in a fraction of a second.
That's right.
And so there's this delay of like your explosive strength deficit, we call it. But you don't have time to dip into your maximum strength. You only have a certain amount of time to deliver the movement.
Yes.
So we call that your rate of force development. How fast can you be strong? Not are you slow to get strong? It's can you develop strength and deliver strength rapidly?
Is it kind of like, I mean, I don't know if this is accurate, but then is it kind of like a Tesla starting off going from 1 to 60?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like torque in a Tesla is immediate.
Yeah. Right.
There's no delay. It doesn't have to go through the gears of an engine. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So you kind of want that Tesla. And so you want to be able to activate your strength more quickly, especially if you're going to throw a jump knee or you want to hit that strike or you want to take that shot. You got to be fast and apply your strength more quickly. If I kind of just mosey on over there and try and, jiu-jitsu might be a little different story where that style of training is you can kind of anaconda somebody, not the actual choke, but just in the analogy of an anaconda slowly choking its victim.
Constricting,
It's a different beast than someone who's trying to be explosive and be throwing knockout punches and kicks or pick up somebody and slam to the ground real hard. I want to be able to develop my strength rapidly. And so the rate of force development matters and how quickly I can access my strength matters. And so when you're doing S&C, you're kind of training how quickly you can generate force, which is a big component. And then can you repeat that? So is your like explosive repeatability. So when I say power is another word for explosiveness. And can I repeat that explosiveness? Can I stay sharp enough? Do I have enough good breathing mechanics to deliver the oxygen to my muscles? Are my muscles good at, clearing that acid, that lactate that's in my muscles, that burn where I'm like, I can't grip you anymore because I was just hanging on to you. I was wrestling. Now I'm striking. We can train that and kind of get that clearance to happen a little bit. My heart is now steady and it's pushing a lot of blood that carries the oxygen where it needs to go. So my heart's working, my muscles are working, and my lungs are working all succinctly to allow me to deliver the explosive power. So like everything kind of works together and you really want to pinpoint and kind of Gavin Pratt, shout out, talks about sniper effect when we're doing our training. It's not just throw a bunch of stuff to the wall and see what sticks. We're targeting very specific changes in your body or adaptations, we say. So we're really trying to move the needle on a specific thing. And so if strength is, the slow dynamic or like the 1 rep max type strength, just lifting as much weight as you can is one type of thing. And then we could be working on the muscle side of conditioning. We could be working on the heart side of conditioning, the lung side of conditioning, the more speed side of the explosive strength. Now we're doing, plyometrics. We're throwing medicine balls. We're lifting lightweight fast. And so now we've got a good pool of strength to dip into. Now I can start focusing on these other really fun, dynamic qualities of strength.
You're getting a lot of data from that. And then you're just like pretty much pinpointing out what you need to work on.
Yep.
So what you just said right there with all that wisdom and knowledge, like when you're watching a fight, can you see that in a fighter? Like say, let's just say there's this main event, right? And then a fighter gasses out. You're like, or does it take you to analyze like data? I know it could be, that's a very general question because I know you're just like looking from outside in and then, it could be anything. But then can you kind of pinpoint like, oh, he's not.
You could say, hey, he gassed out, but we won't know what system failed him.
Yeah.
So I won't know if he gassed out because of X, Y, or Z. And so we'll have tests for X, Y, and Z to determine which one it was.
Yeah.
And if I know it was Y, if I know it was the Y, I'll go and train the Y side. And that way I can complete that fighter.
Is that one of the main questions? Like say if a fighter loses, right? Like a high level match, is that one of the main, I guess, training that he goes to you for to find out what made him gas? Do you get that a lot? Or is it just more like explosiveness training? Or is that a different department?
Kind of. A lot of the fighters that we see, it's I want to have a specific ability. Hey, I want harder punches and I want to last through the rounds. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, okay, cool. So I'll start you with a strength base. We'll work that strength into more explosive movement, and then we'll work on some conditioning, and then we'll run the tests. Our sports science department puts the mask on your face. Yeah. They put you through different bike tests to see what your heart, your lungs, your muscles, and your like respiratory rates do in those tests. And then they can come back and say, oh, this was the thing that failed him. And so we need this specific protocol. He needs to be on, it doesn't have to be on the bike, but essentially you say he needs to do 30 seconds to 60 seconds worth of high intensity efforts, this many times, resting this many times to increase his recovery rate like this. This is the system that failed him, his glycolytic system. Too much acid was in the body, could not clear it. His recovery rate was really low. So we're going to train this glycolytic system, that like intermediate short-term power output, that 20 to 60 seconds worth of effort system. So we're going to put him in maybe the assault. We love the assault bike. I love the assault bike. It's just a big bang for your buck, arms and legs, everything's working together. Throw him on the assault bike and we can do 30-second efforts repeated and we can train that system. So now when he goes back to do that test or throw that combo or have that exchange, his body's physiologically ready for the energy system demands that he's putting on it.
When they're in that assault bike of hell, because that's what I like to call it. I mean, I'm sure it's the best thing for you, but Jesus, man, I hate that thing. But anyway,
better be tired on the bike than tired in a fight.
Oh man, that was actually the question that I was gonna ask. I was like, when you look at a fighter, and then this is probably the obvious, but then they're gassing out maybe 5-10 minutes in. It's like that's a big determinant.
Good.
I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
And then you get more data off of that, and then that's what you go.
And then you just build on it, right? Like, you're not gonna have them. The adaptation process takes time, and so you can get really good training results as short as like 4 to 6 weeks of training a particular targeted quality. And so I can see that. Let's just say, hey, I want you to hold. For example, I want you to hold 75 RPM on the assault bike for this minute. And we try it and you get to 60 seconds. I'm pretty certain by the end of even a month, we could get you to hold that 75 for the minute. And so now you're able to produce more output in the same amount of time. And so we've increased your efficiency.
Yes.
It's easier for you to do. And so there's different targets within the energy system development. We can increase your like overall power, your peak output, your peak wattage on the bike. I can spin the bike way harder and faster in the 6 seconds. We can work on your capacity, so I can do more in that 6 seconds. I can work on the efficiency, which was easier for me. My body was better at delivering. My heart rate was lower to deliver the same level of output in that 6 seconds, or the ability to be more flexible and go in and out of energy systems, like your short term to your immediate to your long term. And so I can train the ability to hop in and out of short term, immediate, long term. Yeah. And so within like there's 3 major energy systems. So you're talking about like most people would say like anaerobic, which is the really short burst sprint type. There's a glycolytic, which is a slightly longer sprint. And then there's your aerobic, right? And so within each 3 of those, we can target that like peak power, that capacity, that efficiency, or that flexibility for each one of those 3. And then you have this limiting factor for any of those 3 or those 4 things that could be your skeletal muscle oxygenation. It could be your heart, or it could be your lung. So even in just energy system development, we've already got 3 different energy systems with 4 different training opportunities with 3 different limiting factors.
Yeah, that sounded like just, I think my brain exploded. I was going to be like, okay, you got the long-term system. I'm trying to figure out a way to like put it in layman's terms in my brain.
Yeah, so we just have like your immediate, which is the anaerobic system. The first one is like 0 to 10 seconds worth of work.
Yeah, the short-term, medium. It's like medium, and then
our bike test is 6 seconds. And we see how explosive you can be in those 6 seconds. And then
what's going on, guys? If you're enjoying this podcast, please don't forget to like the videos and subscribe to the channel. Only if you're getting value out of it on YouTube, and also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to leave a rating and follow. And also, I also write a blog newsletter from what I learned from my incredible guests that I have on. So sign up for the email list and get updates on the podcast. Thank you for your love and support. Now back to the show.
The glycolytic one, it produces that muscle acid, that burn, when you go and hard and fast enough. And so that's your like 20 seconds to 60 seconds worth of like hard work. And it builds a ton of acid and it burns and it really sucks.
Is that like the hardest part? It's kind of like drinking battery acid at that point.
Probably the worst one. We do the 1 minute bike test and it's a absolute 100% effort for 1 minute. And it's the one guys remember that they're kind of traumatized by.
That's a long
probably
minute.
Puke, and it's full effort. And so we can see how much power you were able to sustain. So you did a really good first 30 and your back 30 was trash. And now we want to make that whole 60 seconds really good and sustained.
Just consistently.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's that repeat power. That's an exchange. That's a grapple to striking through a flurry, big exchanges. And that lasted for a while.
That one hit right there. That one hit because it makes so much sense where you could go on like the assault bike and then keep it consistent for that going 100%.
Yeah.
Especially going for 60 seconds. I mean, that's an eternity. But then being in a fight, in a 5-round fight or a 3-round fight, right?
1 minute is.
1 minute is a eternity. 30 seconds. I mean,
you get 1/5 of one round.
My goodness.
1/15 of the average fight. And you could be doing that for 5 minutes straight. And if you don't have that recovery in 1 minute, you go into round 2 and you're like, oh, I'm toast.
You're already defeated psychologically.
And so we've seen that with certain fighters, like they can't recover in the 1 minute. So their heart rate is high at the end of round 1, maybe end of round 2, and they can't get their heart rate down in the 1 minute. So they go back out to the next round already still pretty tired.
Yeah.
And so that 1 minute recovery window is something that we look at. And you want to be able to train your heart rate recovery to come down. You want to practice that.
Let's go more into that because for just the average hobbyist, right? I'll spar a little bit in like Muay Thai and then even in Jiu-Jitsu. And I know how valuable that 1 minute, I try to prolong it actually. You know what I mean? I try to cheat myself. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So I'm telling the guys, I'm like, hold on, give me 1 second. Let's take 15 more seconds. Because it's like I'm trying to recover. Can you get more in depth with that? Because I think that's what a lot of fighters and even just regular practitioners that are thinking in between those 1 minute, 5 minute jiu-jitsu sessions where they're having the rounds, they're like, how can I maximize this break in order for me to go again like I did the first round? Yeah.
A couple pieces to that. In training, you can train that recovery by actually like spike your heart rate and then take a break. I know a lot of guys. I know a guy that I'm working with right now who's got a fight coming up. He would just train as long and hard as he could. He would do a let's just say 5-minute circuits and do burpees and push-ups and sit-ups. And in this 5 minutes, just absolutely spike his heart rate. And then in the 1 minute recovery would do more sit-ups and push-ups and other things. So his heart rate never actually came down. And so for this 25 minutes, he's just peaked and spiked.
Yeah.
And his heart rate was just consistent all the way across the 25 minutes. There was never a spike and a recovery, a spike and a recovery. And so what we did to adjust his training was we actually did it in 30-second intervals. Was a huge 30 seconds, go as hard as you can, rest for 30. Do that for 5 minutes. And so now we're training and then take a 3-minute rest break after the 5 to get your body used to recovering and used to basically uptaking oxygen, utilizing your lung capacity to deliver oxygen to the muscles so that you have energy to work. So the training aspect of it is actually take a break, actually rest. And so spike, rest, spike, rest, spike, rest. Instead of more guys is like, I think a lot of guys would say the longer I can go, the harder I can go, the better. Where that's not actually true because you're never exposing your heart to a recovery system.
Do you think psychology to that though is that now they're not even thinking about like their systems. They're thinking about just breaking the other guy. Yeah. Right? Probably. It's kind of like, they forget about all that. Be like, look, I'm going to outlast this guy till I smell blood in the water and then I'm just going to take him out.
And that's definitely true. And you can gain a good level of endurance to do that. But how much better could your endurance be if your body was good at bringing your heart rate back down in between the round? And so that you started that round with a bigger gas tank, so to speak. You're not already just pinned and revved your engine all the way. And so the training aspect is train hard, take a break, and work that. And then in that round, if you haven't trained it, breathing, like a breathing strategy helps. And so breathing it's a whole level of science and it's insane.
Yeah.
And it's this really low hanging fruit because everyone breathes every day. And so you don't really think about using it as a training tool. And so at the PI with the strength staff, we meet every week and we go over like new strategies and make sure we're up to date on like all the current training strategies that matter, that are impactful. And so one of these, we talked about breathing. And so we have something called power breathing, where in between rounds, it's a very like rapid inhale and a rapid exhale. So it's and essentially what that violent inhale and violent exhale is doing is creating a pressure system inside the body. And forget if I have this backwards, but pressure goes from high pressure to low pressure. And so when you create this drastic change of pressure, you're actually creating an environment that oxygen wants to get into. And so you can breathe hard in, hard out, get a few of these like dump breaths, call them power breathing dump breaths, and you can kind of maximize the oxygen uptake in that 1 minute.
Yeah.
So breathing strategies like that can really help your 1 minute recovery by getting more oxygen in. More oxygen in the lungs will create more oxygen in your bloodstream, which will deliver oxygen to the muscles that need it for work.
That's actually what I was gonna ask. Was that so? Are you doing this during the break, or are you doing this during the fight, or like jiu-jitsu rolls, like the hard breathe?
Probably during the break. I mean, if you can squeeze them in during a round when you're like hard and actively working, even just a few of them, you'll kind of feel a little better. You can kind of trick your body into you're maximizing the oxygen uptake. If you're already out of breath, you might not have the ability to do it because you're just panting and sucking for air. But if you have that gap and you can get a few of those dump breaths in, I think it would be pretty helpful.
So let's go back to like, say just for your average like jiu-jitsu guy, right? If he was rolling for about 5 to say at 8 minute round, can you take us through about like how he would control his breathing patterns to maximize that round? So what, like you said, spike up, spike down, right? Pretty much. For like 30 seconds, is it?
In the round or?
Yeah, in the round, yeah.
Are you talking training or are you talking like mid-round recovery without training?
Training.
Okay, so we're training.
Yeah, we're training. Like during the round. Yeah. Like, well, I guess, how would you optimize like your cardio through breathing while you're, going through like a 5-minute jiu-jitsu round? Or even or a sparring round, let's say.
I think the biggest thing I can think of on that, if you're like in practice, because jiu-jitsu it's a skill practice, right? So it's training, but you're training the skill of jiu-jitsu. So you can train like, let's say it's a non-technical training where you're doing like sandbag work or kettlebell work, and you can use breathing practices and spiking the heart rate and recovering in like that non-technical session. That'll help your technical session. But if you're in the middle of a roll and you're like, hey, I'm training jiu-jitsu, how can I train my breathing to be better? One thing to think about is where your breath is going and how efficient is your breathing. And so one thing that we see a lot is a lot of like chest breathing. So it's really high and the air doesn't get to the diaphragm or like to the deeper levels of your stomach, diaphragm, trunk cavity. And so call them like chest breathing versus diaphragmatic breathing.
Yeah.
And that chest breath is less efficient than like a diaphragmatic breath. I'm getting less total volume of air into my stomach. And so if I'm up here, those breaths are very effective. And so in the round, I want to try and be thinking about, and it's tough when you got a guy on your stomach.
Yes.
Or at that opportunity, maybe you shift and the guy's on your chest and your stomach's open. And now I can breathe into my belly. So I'm able to take a higher volume of air, which my body will use to deliver to the working muscles more effectively. So it's being more efficient in your breathing mechanics.
With the diaphragm breathing, what I'm getting from you is that's obviously very, very important.
Yeah.
What's the technique to that?
Couple different techniques.
Because I don't think people know the difference.
Yeah.
Right?
So one thing we'll do to train it is like you can lay on your back and put your hands on your belly button. Sometimes like a really small weight. And when you're breathing, you're thinking about lifting your hands or lifting the weight so that you can actually kind of see the diaphragm expand. It's easy when you're laying on your back and you can watch the weight rise, but you're trying to think of a deeper breath that goes lower and you're kind of belly breathing is like the common term for it.
Belly breathing, yep.
If you're into yoga, you probably heard belly breathing before, but belly breathing is that deeper lung volume. And so if it's chest, and you can see the chest and shoulders rise, but if it's belly breathing, you can
interesting.
You see the air go deeper, and then if you can add a layer, you do the belly breath and then the chest breath, you go, and I can almost double double the effective air that I'm getting.
So that's the most optimal way of breathing, through your diaphragm and then the chest and then going on.
Yeah, at least down to the diaphragm, you're just getting a higher lung volume. So if you have more air, the respiratory rate can decrease. I'm not, if I'm,
interesting.
and I can get more air per breath, so I don't need as many breaths.
Mm-hmm. The reason why I ask, with like the BJJ stuff, and it's a good way to like segue into it, because now with the UFC BJJ, and obviously I've seen you train Andrew at the PI,
Tackett,
Andrew Tackett, shout out to he's coming on Sunday. What kind of like training particularly are you now getting into specifics, since he is the welterweight champion now, and what kind of techniques, without giving too much away, I guess,
totally.
for Andrew's matches, but then what kind of, particularly in his, obviously, jiu-jitsu field. What are you doing different?
So the cool part about the PI is how many different departments we have and the information that we can get from each department. So our physical therapy team can essentially help us determine breathing mechanics for somebody, whether or not they are efficient or inefficient. Are they a chest breather or a belly breather? And so once someone's been kind of determined, then we can basically work with them on their breathing strategy. So maybe in between exercises, in between sets, we could say, hey, give me like 5 belly breaths, or give me this type of breathing. I want this power breathing or something like that. And so with the PI, it's cool because every athlete gets that individual sniper type effect. There's not one person, just because it's Andrew Tackett, who's the BJJ champ, is getting a different level of training than I'm giving the guy who just won his Contender Series fight. Like they're getting the same level of training because they're at the PI, and that's just how we operate. Everyone's going to get,
yes, of course.
It might be we've determined that this guy has a more base level of lifting experience, so he might need different things than Andrew, who's very in tune with his body. He's very knowledgeable about where he is in space, his proprioception, his like spatial awareness is very good. He can micro adjust his body with little effort. He kind of knows exactly how to adjust. Oh, move my shoulder this way for a better angle. Boom. And he can do it, as I might have to take somebody who's newer to training and help them understand how to move that joint that way.
And that's just self-awareness.
Exactly right.
Wow.
And
that's so, man, that's so detailed. I mean, it kind of just shows how, kind of why he's a champion. It's like, what the heck? Like, just
So
a small detail like that.
Specifically, he is very in tune with his body. And so I was actually talking to him yesterday, and one thing he tells guys is, if you go to a place for physical therapy or for training, he's like, you should have an awareness of your body so that you can sort of be incorporated with the team as to what you need. As some fighters will be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just whatever you think. And I'm like, it helps us
That's
to
true.
get feedback, or to have like if you say that, we'll just run you through all the tests, or I'll just kind of break it down. I'll give you some basic stuff, see what you're good at and what not good at. And I'll just start picking and choosing and plugging away. But if it's like, hey, Sean, I need this type of bracing, this shoulder, my low back gives out every now and again when I'm in this position. I also want to work on my explosive ability, and I also want to work on my, short-term power output. I'm like, oh, great. Now I have these like ingredients where I can make a cool recipe.
It's information.
As opposed to me going to the store and I don't have a shopping list. I'm like, what do we want to work on?
Yeah, right. You're just throwing stuff together, kind of.
At least to start. And it's kind of like, okay, well, we'll start general and we'll build into specifics. But if somebody comes to you with specifics, it's kind of like, cool, now I'm going to give you what you want because and then I'll just blend in the things that I think you need, or see that you need, or have determined that you need on top of what you want. And so now we have this really cool collaborative approach where it's, you tell me what you want, and I'll put that in, but I know what you need, so I'll put that in too.
Yeah.
And so now we can we can make a really cool recipe with some of your ingredients and some of my ingredients.
Right, exactly. I
And
mean,
then it's delicious.
Yeah. Like chicken marinara sauce in a slow cooker.
Shout out.
Shout out. Yeah, no, I think it's very important. Like, why are you going to go to a doctor if you don't tell them what's wrong with you, right? Like, it's like diagnosing. You're working with the doctor to diagnose,
Doc,
even though
I don't
you
feel
might
good.
know.
Okay, tell me more. I don't know. Just tell me what's wrong. And it's like, hey, doc,
Fix me.
I was rolling. This guy armbarred me. My elbow feels a little funky.
Yep.
And so now they can be more specific to your elbow instead of kind of, I don't say wasting time, but using time to determine what's up instead of just saying, hey, my elbow doesn't feel good. Can you check it out? And it just is more efficient, maybe a little more effective.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm always happy when someone comes to me with, specific things they want to work on, because that's fun.
Yeah.
And I can show them the buy-ins there, something to chat about maybe in either way. But like buy-in is like, do you even want to train?
What's a
Buy-in from an athlete is how much they believe the training is going to help.
Okay.
And so some
How
guys
much they're sold on it.
Sold,
on the
yeah.
training,
Like they bought in. Some guys are like, I don't know if this is even going to help me. I don't know if I even want to be here.
Hell, it's just, that's kind of like a weird thing to say.
Yeah, well, guys that might, like we talked about earlier, who might just be really good genetically, who never train S&C, who just say, hey, I won a world title without any S&C. What are you going to do for me? Like, well, how many times did you defend it? How'd you feel during the fight? Could you have gotten there faster? So the guys that you try and build this buy-in, and if you come to us with maybe some ideas of what you're looking for, I can kind of pepper those in. And now you're like, oh, I really noticed how much better I feel in this specific thing because I was looking for it. And now there's a little bit of buy-in, like, well, if he can get me better on that thing, what else can he get me better at? And so there's this, it's not a game, but you want them to realize the benefit of S&C or the benefit of training or training with you. And so you're kind of making sure that it works.
Yeah, exactly. Since they have all these, I know you just mentioned someone coming in, like say for the Contender series, right?
Mm-hmm.
In particular, are you training them? Because they're different movements, like grappling and then striking and all that. Do you train with athletes specifically? Like say if someone comes in there specialized with like striking skills, right?
Yeah.
Are you working them different ways? Or are you kind of
Good question. Yeah.
doing like the same things as a heavy specialized grappler would?
Sure. So that's a great question. And that kind of comes back to the in-camp or off-camp system. And so usually in the off-camp, we might be working on things that you're not very good at. So if you're really bouncy and really springy, but you don't have a high level of strength, we'd say you're force deficient, but your velocity is good. I might be working on more of those force qualities in the off camp. And now say you signed a fight and I know that you're in camp. So it's kind of like work-ons and weapons. In the off camp, it's more your work-ons. And when you're in camp, you're kind of more weaponizing what you already have.
Right.
Or it's more game plan specific. Hey, what's your strategy this fight? Are you going to try and strike? Do you want to take him down? Are you trying to take him to deep water? What are you trying to do in this fight? And so
they're letting you know that.
Yeah. I'll ask. Yeah, like in a fight camp, when someone is doing their fight camp with us at the PI, I'll ask and say, hey, what is your strategy? And how can I efficiently and effectively help your game strategy? And I'm probably not going to make your weakness a strength in fight camp. I'd rather work on things that I can weaponize. And so maybe I'm maximizing your speed and explosiveness so that you can strike because you just want to stand up and box this guy.
Yeah.
And so now I'm working more specific things, and so you can talk about the specificity and the transfer of certain exercises where instead of doing a bench press down, I might be having you standing, throwing a jammer, where the movement is more specific to the action you're going to do in the fight.
Yes.
And so training becomes more specific to your fight and to your, I guess the
style
what
that
you want to
have.
accomplish in the fight. Yeah. So exercises will get more specific in camp. We start working more that speed, velocity. We kind of lay off the strength. We start working more of that like explosive energy system, not so much on the aerobic, like road work. And so in camp, everything kind of shifts to lighter, faster. Maybe in the beginning of camp, you can keep the strength in there, but about a month, about 4 weeks in, we kind of taper the strength out a little bit and start to increase more of that like explosive speed, power type stuff. And we're working on, what your game strategy is. So we're kind of training you towards how you want to fight, and so that we can maximize your fight strategy.
What does a camp look like? The schedule of a fighter look like during a camp? Is it 2-3 days? It probably depends, but then is it 2-3 days of like strength and conditioning? How much of, or is it up to the fighter to see how much strength and conditioning they want to do? Do a lot of coaches push them into strength and conditioning? What do you see overall when it comes to fighters wanting or having to do strength and conditioning during a fight camp?
Totally. Yeah, that's a great question. Typically in an off camp, we'll see a guy 3 times, maybe 4 times a week. In a fight camp, usually we're seeing them less. The priority becomes more on your like technical skills in a fight camp. And so I never want you, or definitely don't want a fighter to kind of put off his technical training to come do S&C. Like, you need to train to fight, and your skills have to be up, and we want to enhance your skills, not necessarily make you into a gym athlete.
Yeah, like the main thing's the main thing.
The main
right?
thing's
Which
the
is
main
fight.
thing,
Yeah.
right? And so some guys will be like, hey, I actually need to do less sessions. My body's getting broken down. I don't want to do S&C right now. I'll come back after. Like, thanks for all the work leading up to camp. I'm going to prioritize camp with my coaches and my other training. So we get that sometimes. And then some guys will just stay consistent and train. I'd say 2 times a week is pretty standard for a fight camp. Maybe there's like a third day of like conditioning or specific cardio that they're doing. Or maybe there's a third day of like some sort of activation type sequence, or like we call it like a neural stim or like a CNS activation where, hey, I'm going to spar. I'm going to do a 20-minute ramp up to spar. So I might throw a medicine ball, jump around, and kind of get my body ready for sparring. Some guys will like that. But I think on average, 2 to 3 times a week out of camp, and then in camp probably about twice a week.
Interesting. And this is this an 8-week camp? 12?
Most
12
camps, most camps are 6 to 8 weeks, I would say.
6 to 8 weeks. Yeah. So
8 weeks like a long camp.
oh, is it?
I would
that-
say, about 8 weeks out is when you're kind of hitting camp. You might have 8 weeks and then fight week. But essentially the style is we taper down the total fatigue, and we taper down the training load. And so 8 weeks out, I can still lift you. We can still do strength. We can still move heavier weights. And then probably about 4 weeks out, we start tapering some of the heavier weights into more of like an explosive phase. And then, 2 weeks, 1 week's out, it's just speed and explosiveness, maybe bands, medicine balls, jumps, maybe touched a little bit of weight, but it's not as high of a load as it was before, because we're trying to minimize the fatigue and maximize the skill.
Right.
And so the more training you do, the more fatigue you accrue. And so it's like, I can't do all the training and all the skill work because now I'm just doing too much workload. So when you get into the fight, you want to be sharp. So we periodize, is the word in S&C, is how we plan and taper the training to make you peak at the right time. Because when you get into the ring, I don't want you tired from training. I want you sharp and explosive and just ready to go, because the training broke you down, but after you were broken down, you got built back up. Your body was like, came back stronger, essentially, is the right. Super compensation is the fancy word, but you essentially build fatigue, give your body time to recover. And then when you recover, you adapt better than you were before. So you kind of,
I see.
my little analogy is you kind of dig the ditch and then you stand back on the dirt that you just dug. So now I'm at a higher level than I was before.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
That's kind of the, like, there's an alarm phase. There's an exhaustion phase. So your body's like, what's happening? Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I got to rest. I'm better now. I'm better than I was.
Right.
And that's kind of the general theme of training. That's kind of the adaptation process, is you create a stress, your body responds to the stress, and then your body adapts to the stress.
Oh man, that's so interesting.
It's a general the general adaptation syndrome is how you respond to the environment you're given, right? So any stressor that you create, your body will adapt to that stressor. And so when you can pick a specific stressor, you know what you want to target. We call it the SAID principle, a specific adaptation to an imposed demand. If I know what training does to your body, I can pick and choose what training we do, so I know what it's going to do to your body.
Yeah, and then when do you stop? Is it about maybe 2 weeks out before their fight, where you
About a week.
about a week?
About a week, yeah. So I got a guy who fights on Saturday, and our last session was on Monday this week, and it was like a 20, 30-minute session. And it was just like a neural stim, we call it. So there's like diminished returns on training. Everyone knows if you don't train for a month, you got weaker. If you don't run for a month, you can't run as far, you're more tired. And so there's like these, each different strength quality or like cardio capacity or central nervous system adaptation, there's a decay rate.
Is that, before we move on, is that like say if you got injured,
You don't
right?
use it. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. But what is the range on that? Is it like a month, then you start losing it? Or is it 2 weeks? Is there anything?
Yeah, they
particular?
range depending on the adaptation. So strength, you keep for about a month. About 4 weeks, you can maintain most of your strength up to, you might lose like 10% of your overall. If I could squat 400 pounds, I might lose like 40 pounds if I don't squat in that month. So now I can only squat, do the math,
Is that like a
360.
general rule for?
Yeah, about there's a guy, Cal Dietz, he's got this cool like model of like decay rates and different training adaptations. So like muscle size versus true strength, but the central nervous system and those speed, explosive power, they decay the fastest. In as little as 5 to 7 days, you can lose your speed and power at a rate that's significant enough to make sure that we need to touch it. Like for instance, I did a lot of NFL and combine training. And so these combine guys, like if you're running a 40-yard dash and the difference between a 4.2 and a 4.18 40 is it's hundredths of a second, but the decay rate on that matters because that could be $1 million on their contract.
That's right. Yeah.
And so you got to time the training so that you don't lose any of that speed or explosive power. And so we're trying to optimize the training so that when you get into the ring or the cage, you're at your absolute most explosive. And so there's a kind of take the decay rate into consideration. That's why a lot of our fighters will do that like neural stim type workout on a Monday, because now I've kept it.
Yes.
I didn't give it an entire week where I wasn't touching that speed. And it's not, you can get it in pads, but a lot of pads, if you don't time the rest breaks and things like that, right? Like you're probably just getting tired.
Exactly.
And so this is a workout that's specifically designed to sharpen the blade essentially, or keep you sharp, keep you focused, keep your brain activating as explosively as possible. So it's really low volume. So not a ton of sets and reps. I mean, our workout was 25 minutes maybe. That included our warm up. I think we did like 6 big exercises and it was like 2 sets of 3-ish reps on each exercise.
It's just kind of like a fast brain twitch, I guess you could say, that you're trying to get them to go. Like
And
their
so-
brain firing off.
Yeah, it's exactly right. So we're keeping the brain firing so that the decay rate doesn't set in from last week.
Yeah.
If you do your last session on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and now I got to go the Wednesday, Thursday, plus the fight week where I'm doing all my media and all my other training, and I haven't touched a medicine ball to throw high speed in a week and a half, am I as explosive a week and a half later?
Yeah.
So I might have lost some of the explosive power that we trained for that whole fight camp.
Oh man, interesting. And that'd just be like a kind of a waste.
Peaking
kind of
essentially is what we're doing. We're trying to peak you for the fight so that you, by the time you get into the ring,
You stay there.
Yeah, so you need to have a little bit of stress and fatigue going in. So like usually we do like a moderate. So like our training, it's high intensity, moderate intensity, and like low intensity days. And we kind of vary the training days to according to plan so that we're creating the right amount of stress. So we want a little bit of stress before your fight, like that week before. So if he fights on Saturday, last week we trained with weights and we still did a bunch of explosive stuff. And then now on his fight week, it's a deload week for him, which allows his body to rest and recover. And so we use fight week as a deload. And now when you've had a chance to rest and recover, your body is fresher than it was. And so the fatigue is gone. And now your fitness or your overall training ability is higher than it was that last week.
Yeah, that takes over the fatigue.
Yeah,
or whatever
exactly.
fatigue you have.
So less fatigue, more like function. And so we're peaking for fight week. So it's a particular like timing and organization of your training load and your training volume to get to the right time so that you're not tired for Saturday. And
that must be
you're not
huge.
Too rested for Saturday that you detrained a little bit. So it's a big component of it for sure.
Yeah, like the peak state. Man, dude, that's again,
That's part of the science.
everything down to a T. And it's so crazy when, as I'm talking to you, how far the sport has gone, right? From like, I'm sure the NBA, as technology gotten better, like say the NBA, even the NFL, obviously the standards have been raised up because of like the technology and all this. But then we're talking about the UFC. I mean, the amount of like standards of like sports medicine and like strength and conditioning, the specific details on that from where it was from like 2005 or something,
Big time.
I think is just like off the charts. Just because, look, I know that UFC, even though it's been around, or just combat sports in general, as far as like everything grappling is a newer sport.
Yeah.
It's still evolving at a rapid rate compared to like NFL, right? And
Newer sport in the like entertainment. I mean, think of the Coliseum, grappling and
right. You're right.
Newer like consumer sport.
You're right.
Or monetized sport, or like maybe a professional sport.
That's a great point. Yeah. I guess where the mass media have seen it and really gotten mainstreamed, right?
Yeah.
Because now they're really dialing it in on like performance based,
Oh, yeah.
kind of like baseball. It's why people take TRT, right? I mean, probably all sports. You know what I mean? You got Roger
can't-
Clemens, they just,
I don't know.
you know, yeah. But I guess what I'm trying to say to that is that everything's specific.
Oh, yeah.
Everything's specific. Everything is trying to optimize everything. Not that like
100%.
the fighter's taking TRT or
Yeah.
anything. I'm just saying like, man, whatever inch you could get out of like strength and conditioning, nutrition has just come such a long way
Yeah,
because
definitely.
contracts are getting bigger, right? And all that. So
Kind of that sniper approach we were talking about,
Yeah.
that specific targeting that we
Yeah.
were looking at. It's not just, do some stuff, you'll be good. It's no, do these specific things in this specific order so that you can be good at this specific time.
yes, exactly. Yeah. Specific. But who is kind of a fun question here before we start wrapping things up. Who's like the biggest freak that you've seen? Just genetically, just like the whole time you've been working at the PI that came in there and be like, dude, are you even human? You know what I mean? Like speed, power, just a genetic LeBron James type athlete when it comes to combat.
That's a good question.
Someone that like blew your mind. You're like, come on, dude, is this even real?
I'm boring on this. I don't think I have a very good answer for you. I feel like everything kind of comes at a trade-off. I would say if anyone, Wei Li,
Okay.
that I've
okay.
seen, and that's not so much from my personal vision, but when I go back to look at like some of the testing numbers that we have, she tests amazingly well. She's extremely strong, extremely explosive, great cardiovascular. Like as an athlete and as a physical human, she tests really well. Her numbers
Right.
exceed pretty much everybody. So
I can
she's
see, like, yeah, I can see that. You know, it's like, wow.
So, and she's here this week, and but that's more on the back end of like looking at the testing data as opposed to me like watching and seeing all the stuff that she's been doing. But every time I go back and like, you know, I'm comparing, you know, women's weight class records, I'm like, oh, wait, oh.
I mean, numbers don't lie, right? I mean, the data.
So it's actually a
shows.
pretty fun comment, and you know, our PI, the goal of the PI or the phrase or the slogan that we're kind of modeling this year is we're trying to increase the probability of success. And that's what we're doing at the PI is, you know, obviously we're training the athlete side of the fighter and we're trying to increase their probability of success. But the crazy thing about fight is everyone's got a puncher's chance. You could be the Ivan Drogov and have someone who just won't go down or lands the right punch at the right time. And so, I mean, I've had guys that are just at their physical peak and they just get caught.
Yes.
And it's a tactical error. And it's, you could be the absolute best trained athlete with the best cardio and you're super explosive and, you know, but you take the wrong punch or you get caught with the wrong thing and boom, it's over. So it's really interesting to sometimes see how sometimes it doesn't matter in that, but we have a model at the PI. It's the FMA model. So it's the fighter, the athlete, and the martial artist. And our job as strength and conditioning is to focus on the athlete of that model. And so the fighter is your technical skills and the tactical skills, and the martial artist is your creativity and putting those skills to use and how you flow and how you pick and choose your shots. But the athlete side is what our job in the S&C department is to focus on the physiological underpinnings of how we're training that athlete, the strength and power stuff, the ESD, the cardio, the conditioning type stuff. And so that's all we can really focus on. And I mean, I like to think that if you put two guys in there who, let's just say they're extremely equal in skill and everything else equated, probably the stronger, better conditioned athlete would win. That's kind of where I go with that. But I mean, it's the fight game. Anything can happen. But I mean, our job is really just target the physiology that relates to fighting.
Like what that always reminds me of, like, you know, when you say the puncher's chance and all that stuff, it's like what George St. Pierre, what he was saying in the Joe Rogan podcast was like, sometimes you should have zigged when you zagged. That's literally,
Quite
you know what
literally.
I mean? Yeah.
You look down at the wrong time and you caught a knee. Like
That's it. Yeah. You slipped your head the wrong way. You know, right?
You stepped right into a punch and now
Exactly.
you're waking up asking, why is there everybody in the ring? Like,
Yeah. So I guess my last question for you, man, and dude, we gotta have like a part 2 of this. This is, I mean, we could probably have a part 10. We wouldn't even cover
Sure.
it. But man, why'd you do it? Like, why do you do what you do?
So I grew up playing sports. Played soccer as a kid, then played football, and that whole time I was playing baseball, and then I wrestled. And I kind of started my journey after I've had some pretty significant like injuries. I crashed a motorcycle and broke some bones there.
What kind of motorcycle, man?
The one I crashed was a Kawasaki ZX6R, a little Ninja.
I used to ride a Harley too.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
nice. Yeah. So I crashed that, got a Honda after that, and then I had a
Nightwing. Is it?
The CBR.
CBR.
I did the street bikes, and then actually before I moved here to Vegas, I had a Yamaha Bolt, which is like that Harley Iron like clone.
Yeah, right.
It's a little bit more cruiser.
Like
get
a
myself,
cafe kind of racer.
Yeah, kind of a little more cruiser style, small type cruiser. Get me off the high RPMs of the street bikes. But yeah, so I mean, I've been an athlete pretty much my whole life, and then transitioned to my adult life. Doing more. I played like 8 seasons of rugby, and a lot of my journey came from injury. And so I actually originally wanted to be a physical therapist, and I've always just had this positive outlook on life. I've always loved people. I've always enjoyed talking and communicating to people and helping people. And so originally I wanted to go into physical therapy and help people, recover from the injuries like I had. I've had a shoulder surgery, 2-3 knee surgeries. I've broken up quite a few bones. And
is that mainly due to rugby, or is that just overall?
Rugby was a lot of it.
I'm guessing so, because you guys are one of the toughest guys. People that play rugby they have a lot of grit.
It's a tough sport for sure.
Of course.
It's a tough sport. It can definitely relate to, martial arts. And I mean, the fighters that we see, definitely MMA is the hardest sport. Rugby's its own kind of hard. It's a controlled chaos. You're not actually getting punched in the face, but you can.
It's a different kind of, it's like hockey players.
I've caught plenty of knees. Being on the wrong side of a tackle, the guy's knee, I come out with a black eye, mouse's forehead, I'm bleeding. I tore my ACL playing rugby. I broke an ankle. I broke a rib. 2 ribs. Yeah, quite a few rugby injuries. But I mean, my journey started with injury, and then through the course of then finding exercise science, then I found strength and conditioning. It was like, if I can just get strong first, then I'll have a lower chance of getting injured. And so then strength and conditioning was fast. At first I was interested in the recovery side, and then I was interested about the human performance side. And the human performance side kind of just took my imagination because I didn't know what was even possible. And I played football growing up in high school and stuff. And it was just lift weights, get big, get strong.
Yes.
You go through school and like you learn how much you don't know. Yeah, you realize how much more there is to training that's just outside get strong and get big muscles. It's all the reaction time, the explosiveness, the power we were talking about, velocity, speed, rate of force development, hand-eye coordination, like joint stability, movement mechanics, and all these other things that you can train for that aren't just get big and strong. And getting big and strong is like definitely the first step to being a more robust and reducing injuries. But there's a lot of other stuff like the central nervous system adaptations that you can target with the speed, the power, the velocity, and some of those other higher level adaptations. And so I do it because I love it, but I also love communicating with people. I love being and feeding off energy and giving energy and being in a high energy environment. I couldn't sit behind a desk. So
sure. I mean, in objectively looking at it, it's like, dude, you're doing like God's work. Like honestly, right? You're helping people out.
Man, it's glory to God, dude. Honestly, I don't think I'd be where I am if it weren't for him. So shout out to my man upstairs.
For sure, man. I 100% second that notion. Dude, yeah, thank you for coming on, man. This was like mind-blowing to me. I'm just sitting here in awe, like how specific the details are. Yeah. And I knew it was. Yeah. But then to just learn more about people's crafts, that's why I started this podcast. Yeah. Just, especially when it comes to strength and conditioning. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, when I, watch you train like Evan and at the PI in particular too, I was like, this is just like down to a science. This is down to a T.
Absolutely.
From what you guys are doing from the physical therapy aspect of it. The nutrition I haven't seen too much of, but I mean, that's probably a no-brainer. The strength and conditioning, I was like, dude, this is like, it's just, I'm like in a Tesla factory or something. Like it's just a SpaceX kind of innovating what you guys are doing to these,
that's the goal.
Athletes.
That's
optimizing
the goal.
what you're doing with these athletes.
That's the goal.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you for coming on, Sean. You've added a lot of value, especially to me.
Cool, man.
You know what I mean? So,
happy to come back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're definitely coming on, man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. It's an honor.
Let's go.